Now that you know how much water you can capture and store in your landscape, let's talk about putting it all together in your yard.
There are multiple ways to capture the first flush of rainwater, including redirecting or diverting downspouts, creating swales and basins, and using rain barrels or cisterns. Whatever methods you choose to catch rainwater, one thing remains the same. Making your soil into a soil sponge is the key. Healthy, living soil is essential to your plan to capture rainwater and save it for a not-so-rainy day. When planning how to store water and help sink it into the soil, make sure to mind your foundation. Rainwater that falls off your roof or from a downspout should be channeled away from your foundation. To soften the force of that water as it falls off your roof, put mulch, gravel, or sturdy plants directly underneath it to break the impact of water hitting the ground. Once it hits the ground, a gentle sloping channel can help spread the water. Remember that water seeks the lowest point, so this channel should slope downward as it moves away from your house. A gentle 2 or 3% slope may be all you need. These natural basins, also called swales, should be set back at least 5 feet from buildings, and at least 3 feet from driveways, sidewalks, and retaining walls. If you have expansive clay soil or poor percolation, you may require more distance to keep your structures safe. If you have concerns, consult a licensed landscape architect or soils engineer for guidance. Pull out the plot plan you created in an earlier episode and start taking measurements. Draw setback lines onto your plan. This will tell you where to move your water and where to locate your infiltration areas.
From the very back of the yard to the street, it's a gentle downhill slope. Even when we watered the lawn, it would tend to run off and go down the gutter. We wanted to control that runoff, and with the minimal amount of water that we did do for our new plants, we wanted it to be captured and caught and moved to the next level of plants, and so we tried to minimize what ended up going down to the gutter.
It was 9,000 square feet of lawn we got rid of, so we were trying to figure out what to do with all that area. And I think it was at the Landscape Water Authority class that kind of helped us realize that we needed mounds. And then as we got going along, those mounds kind of became a way to hold back earth and water and flatten out the pathways.
By using the pathways and the mounds, permeable paving, flagstone for pathways, decomposed granite, and eliminating concrete surfaces, that's how we minimize the water that actually ends up going down the slope.
Water moving down a slope often has little chance to soak in. If you are landscaping slopes, consider digging shallow trenches across the hillside. As rainwater flows down the hill, water will fill the trench and soak the roots below. Another way to store and spread rainwater is to create shallow basins or swales where water can spread out over a wide area. It can be just a few inches deep and as wide or as small as you have room for. Ideally, swales should be vegetated with plants and lined with rocks and small boulders to maximize infiltration and their resemblance to natural creek beds. Remember, a swale doesn't have to be rock. It can be a shallow depression filled with plants and mulch and achieve the same results. It will look so natural you'll barely notice it. Swales are an easy, natural, and beautiful way to slow, spread, sink, and store your rainwater.
We get more runoff from the rain when it rains really heavy and hard, and that's what kind of needs more control than the irrigation does now. We put in dry river beds with drains that both capture and then distribute the water so it goes where we would like it to go and water the plants.
Swales mimic the way nature moves water. They move water away from your roof and foundation by providing natural depressions flowing away from your house. While swales collect water and give it time to soak into your soil sponge, they also create an interesting variety of elevations for a natural effect in your garden design. Combining multiple swales or using different techniques in the same project will result in a more natural landscape appearance. You might find that rainwater flows easily down a gentle slope in your yard, since most yards are graded to move water away from your home's foundation. If that is the case, water may naturally fill your swale. If that slight grade doesn't exist yet, you can move water to your basin or to any place that you want to spread it and sink it into your soil with a shallow, low-angled trench directed to permeable areas. Remember to seek professional advice before grading or digging. Always call Dig Alert 811 first. An easy way to move water to basins or swales is by redirecting your gutter downspouts. Think about ways that the downspouts can discharge into landscaped areas. Dissipating the force and slowing the flow of water will give it more time to sink into the soil.
Where the rain gutters just come down off the roof onto the corners of the home, they tend to go into areas that I put the drains that go where I want the water to go, and into the yard and the landscaped areas, instead of just going straight down the driveway. Having the zones of area that you can transition from, one planted area with boulders and mounds, pathway, then another boulder area and mounds and pathways. So as you go down the slope, you eventually get to the street and use less water at the very bottom.
There are a lot of areas that don't have water going to it, and I notice they can stay wet for months without being watered. Things like aloe, they turn bright red without water, and that's great. They don't necessarily need water.
Many landscapes have an underground drainage pipe that connects the downspout to a curb cutout. If you have a drainage pipe beneath your soil, you may sever the pipe underground and let it feed a swale or dry stream bed directly.
The way I capture that is through gutter downspouts, and they go into a dry creek bed. And the dry creek bed has a water retention as it's draining down the creek bed, and water retention at the end. Kind of creates a short-term small pond.
How big does your water storage and infiltration area need to be? It should hold as many cubic feet of water as you will be harvesting from your roof area. In our previous example, we determined that our 2,665 square foot roof would collect 1,652.3 gallons, or 226 cubic feet of first flush rainwater. Using the formula of length times width times depth, we can determine the size that our water detention area needs to be. Keep in mind that you may need more than one detention area to reach your goal. So a basin that's 24 feet long by 15 feet wide and 4 inches deep would hold 115 cubic feet of rainwater. If we installed 2 of these, we would reach our goal. Or we could include a third detention area and make them all smaller. Another way to store rainwater is to install rain barrels or cisterns. They are inexpensive and easy to install. Water stored in rain barrels and above-ground cisterns can gradually be released into the landscape between winter rains, soaking into the soil sponge and ensuring that plants get additional water when it's not raining. However, rain barrels and cisterns are just part of the solution and are best used in tandem with other landscape features that catch the rain. Whichever catchment and detention techniques you choose, one thing remains the same. Making your soil into a soil sponge is the key. Healthy, living soil is essential to your plan to capture rainwater and save it for a not-so-rainy day.
A sustainable approach to landscaping results in a cleaner environment, reduced irrigation needs, and a more beautiful and natural-looking landscape. That's a win on all accounts.